Well, here it is, Sunday, March 11th, 7:54. I'm up and awake, and the reason I am is because I've been hit on and off since midnight. Um, this morning, severely. So I decided, usually when they wake me up, I try to do something positive for me and negative for them. So I wrote a letter, and I think this is why my targeting is so horrific, is because I wrote a letter to Wired magazine last October when we had a conference in Massachusetts called Unity and Hope. Alice in Ireland uh, put it forth, and I went to it just one day for a few hours. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay the whole weekend, but transportation was a problem. But it went off very well, and it was our first targeted individual conference. So Wired sent a representative. I think her name is Laura Yan, and she did a write-up on the conference. And I only read part of it, and it was kind of bland, and it one target, Lisa, gave her story, and I wasn't too impressed about it. I don't think other targets were either. Um, as we know, this is a global intelligence agency product. It's kind of like Nazi #2. So they posted that article on wired.com, and I wrote in the comments section, and evidently several targets really liked it. So I thought I would read it here, and sorry, my voice is so raspy. I thought I would read it here, so a lot of others can hear it. I'm going to put it on YouTube. Anyway, dear Wired, I think you lost an opportunity to do a great service to our country. We as targets are the canaries in the coal mines. In the old days, the coal miners used to bring canaries down into the coal mine, and the canaries were so sensitive to poison gas, they would be the first killed, and it would warn the miners to get out of the mine. And this is what I believe we are as targeted individuals. I'll continue, but first a little education. Before World War II, the Nazis went after vulnerable populations. They went after the mentally ill, gypsies, poor, and they killed them. As they are doing today. I call those in power Nazi because it is the same playbook. We as targets are under the same classification as terrorists. Now, why would our government do this to us? They've experimented on some of us with high-tech directed energy weapons. The government believed these weapons must be tested before entering the theater of war, and they are right. So our government chose to practice on the American vulnerable sections of the public. Others that they practice on, they call mentally ill. Others are activists, dissidents, and whistleblowers, people that our government wished to shut up. All of the groups I mentioned above mean nothing to our government. Our lives mean nothing, as does yours. You and we are seen as a commodity, like rice, beans, and cattle. And that's true. That is how the government looks on the common man. They think we are just a mass of seething flesh that is stupid. And in a lot of respects, we are. The reason we are under the umbrella of terrorists is because then we are classified under national security because of the use of directed energy weapons on our persons. And you and I know that nothing can be done if the group or person is under national security, done to hide their crimes. That's pretty much basically what they're doing it for. They don't want anybody to know that they're using these weapons on the American public and to hide their crimes because they're asset stripping a lot of targets. They're forcing them to suicide. These school shootings are also part of it. These young men, as you will hear, are being forced with their some of them are unstable, and they're given these psychotronic drugs that makes them aggressive. I know that the military was experimenting with that. They were giving soldiers aggressive drugs, and they found out that instead of shooting the enemy, the soldiers were shooting each other. So they kind of canned it. But now I think that they're giving these school shooters these aggressive drugs so that they will go into the schools and shoot them. You see, the government wants us to give up our guns willingly. We have the Second Amendment that protects us from this. But the government wants us to be like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK. They want to take away all our guns. And I'll tell you right now, what I know about these weapons, these are the most controlling, most horrific devices you've ever heard of. And I think this is exactly why our forefathers put that Second Amendment in there, in the Constitution. They knew the capabilities of government and what government would do to the populace. And thank God they did, because I think everybody should be armed. If I had a shotgun, do you think that these people would drive by my apartment and be hitting me with these weapons that are hurting me? You don't know how horrific these weapons are. I do. And this is why I, at this age, am warning you from what I have been through for the past 25 years. I know the capabilities of these weapons because they've used all of them, almost all of them, on me. And I'm telling you right now, it's a very, very good thing that we have the Second Amendment. Because this government is the biggest Nazi machine in the world. Makes Hitler look like a kindergarten. This is not in all in my letter to Wired. I digress. I'm sorry, but I just want to tell you, people should be afraid, very, very afraid. Anyway, I'll get back to my letter. So I'm going to repeat this. The reason we are under the umbrella of terrorism is because then we are classified under national security because of the use of directed energy weapons on our persons. And you and I know that nothing can be done if the group or person is under national security. That's where they're hiding everything. Done to hide their crimes, forcing people to suicide. I know several people that they've already killed with these weapons. I was forced into hospital. When I went to the emergency room, I asked the physician, if someone's hit in the head with a laser, what are the clinical aspects of being hit in the head with a laser? Without a thought, she said a stroke. I said, what about in the heart? The clinical aspects of being hit in the heart with a laser. She said a heart attack. These crimes are so hidden. Okay, this is done to hide their crimes, and I'm telling you that there's a lot of crimes out there. We are a shattered group, having been subjected to sleep deprivation and stress for years. This is want to and will cause the same symptoms as PTSD. That is the goal, and that's what they've done with these school shooters. What better way to force legislation, have people give up their weapons than to kill our children? What is more precious to us than our children? Nothing. That's our future. That's our immortality. So to them, killing our children mean nothing. It's not their kids. They don't care. So just think of it that way. There are three main factors within that heading: death by 1,000 cuts, plausible deniability, and anchoring. Anchoring is the most important. Is basically the same as Pavlovian training. This training is done with everyday innocent objects, like letters in a license plate, a color, continuous coughing, sneezing, a certain vehicle, hand gestures, all innocent acts that are tuned into the target's mind because of anchoring. A threatening mindset. That is what our government has done with anchoring. They have made these innocent, everyday gestures and objects threatening gestures. They've turned around and made us fearful of sneezing. Somebody sneezes 5 or 6 times in our presence, gets our attention if we've been tuned into it. This is what our government has done with anchoring, death by 1,000 cuts. If this is done 1,000 times a day using gang stalking, look it up, as the modus operandi, and of course plausible deniability, meaning it is so devious and subtle, who would believe us? Constant stress is inflicted on the target. If you see this gesture 1,000 times a day, that they've triggered you to think of as threatening, then your stress level is at a high level all day. So you see, these crimes are in plain sight. Stress and sleep deprivation is also used to soften up the target. There is more to this all-controlling technique. Matter of fact, this is a totalitarian state. It is going to be a much different world for our children. If you wish, is it ever? If you wish to write a more comprehensive article than the one that you wrote above, I would be glad to send you a write more on the subject so that you understand better what our government is really doing behind the public's back. Now, this is global. This is controlling. They're going into other countries using their intelligence agencies, and they're all doing this. From what I understand, NSA has infiltrated 100 countries, and the Five Eyes are all targeting people exactly like we're being targeted here in the United States. Five Eyes, New Zealand, Canada, the UK, and the US, and Australia. They want to continue doing what they are doing. These weapons are so powerful and so controlling. It is every Nazi's dream. Oh, Hitler would have gone crazy with these. These programs are deeply hidden in plain sight. Oh yes, one other point. Michael Hayden was in charge of NSA between 99 and 05. It could be 96 and 05. I should check that out and correct it. That means he was responsible for 9/11. He and his buddies were going for the program Trailblazer, which data mined all Americans versus Bill Binney's, NSA's top analyst, Thin Thread, which threw out American data and only collected foreign data. Trailblazer is against the American Constitution for invasion of warrantless collection of all data, medical, financial, etc., all digital communications, invasion of American privacy and data. That was Bill Binney's objection, because Trailblazer went against the Constitution. So that was why he left NSA. That was Bill Binney's objection, including Kirk Weeb, Thomas Drake, Diane Rourke, John Kirikou. They all left. Some went to jail. Some were assets stripped. Some were subjected to constant targeting and lost everything. I know they held a gun to Bill Binney's head. The reason NSA did not see 9/11 coming is because they were overwhelmed by all the garbage data that Trailblazer took in and could not see the forest for the trees, according to Binney. If you want to see how NSA is data mining all Americans, go to YouTube and search for Binney, ACLU, and MIT. Binney spoke before MIT. He was requesting some of the students if they would like to join him in fighting Trailblazer. I don't know how successful that went off, but he wanted to show exactly how NSA is, in this video, he spoke before them, Binney spoke before them, and showed exactly how NSA is doing its collecting, and it continues to this day. So, with my asides, that's basically the letter I sent to Wired.com, and this morning it's been horrific. These bolts of electricity, they're like lightning bolts, only they're short pulses, and they hit you, they burn, can go through you. It's like a buzzsaw. It's like an invisible buzzsaw. They can pick you up through the wall and slam you on the floor, knock you over. I was walking down the street, and I saw a man parked. It was a dead-end street, parked at the end of the street with a woman standing there talking to him. It kind of caught my eye, so I continued walking. All of a sudden, I was picked up through the air and body slammed. They didn't want to hurt my head. They made sure my arm was up and under my head. They didn't want to hurt my skull. I got up. This woman that had been talking to that man was beside me and asked if I needed a chair, and I said no. And then they pulsed me again, and I call it a bloom. This pulse will hit you, and it will go all through your body, and it will heat you up to the point of incapacitation. You cannot function, you cannot talk. The only thing you want to do is lay down and get cool. They've demonstrated this several times, but only the people feel it for just a few seconds and move out of the way. I didn't. They really incapacitated me several times for several hours, and then you get to the point where you projectile vomit and you projectile diarrhea at the same time while you lay on the floor not being able to do anything. So you see, I've been subjected to several of these devices over the years as punishment, or you never know why, and know the capability of what these devices can do. And this is all through the wall. Audio Spotlight is the device that is directed sound. It can hit one person in a crowd and give a message to them. From what I understand, they use this type of a device in DC so that certain individuals can communicate together without a paper trail or digital trail. And the only way that you would know what's in the message is if you got between them, got between the device and the person it was aimed at. They use it for private communication. And I can see that, because it won't, unless you actually stand right in the beam, you won't hear a thing. Now, the military grade of that will go through walls. The commercial aspect, Audio Spotlight, is part of it, and hypersonic sound is another commercial aspect of it, won't go through walls. I went up to Maine one time to Woody Norris's American Technology Corporation, and they demonstrated that, and they demonstrated, I forget the name of it. It's the big Jeep that has the device on top of it. They demonstrated that for me too. Well, anyway, it just bounced. You could hear the sound just bounce around the wall room. And I guess they made it loud enough so that it was aimed at me, so you could hear it. They threw me downstairs and snapped my ankle in midair. I landed at the bottom of these steep cellar stairs, very sharp stairs, small, very just enough for one person to get down, and landed at the bottom without a bruise, without anything. They just wanted to break my ankle. And they did, snapped it midair. It was incredible. Let me tell you, I know exactly what these people can do. And the American public should be scared shitless. They've killed a lot of dogs. I think the reason that they killed a lot of dogs is, it's a depopulation program. To them, why not? Because who's going to take care of the dogs after the people are killed? And they think there are too many pets in the United States anyway. They think people spend too much money on pets, so they want to get rid of them. Cats, dogs. The other reason is because cats and dogs will always alert to these beams and these pulses. The animals realize this is abnormal. This is wrong. I think that's one of the reasons why they killed my Jake, my Akita, is because he alerted to them. He never let it one. He even alerted me to the people who were doing it, and I didn't realize what he was doing. He never barked. He never was aggressive dog, but there was a couple of times when he barked at certain men, and I couldn't understand it. I was like, "Wow, what's the matter, Jake?" And they were the men who were aggressively attacking me. They were coming up at night, and he knew exactly who they were. He could see them, he could smell them. One was on the local fire department here. His name is Tim Quinn, I think. The other one was, I was staying up in New Hampshire. They drove me to a cabin up in the mountains, and he used to come down in the lower cabin, and he'd pulse me from there while I slept. My sister-in-law saw it too. She knew what I was saying. She never doubted me after that. She did at first, but after she saw that crap, the people in this building believe me too. Every one of them's been hit. The reason that they hit my neighbors is because they want to turn them against me. They make it very plain that I'm the one who brought this into their lives, because they want to turn these people against me so that they can use them as tools against me. That's how it works. It's called flipped. They'll flip my neighbors. They'll go after them aggressively. They don't care who the neighbor's going to report it to. They ain't going to report it to nobody. Cops all know about this. All first responders know about this. They have the weapons. They're given the weapons. They either make the weapons themselves or they're given the weapons by the feds. Now, I also heard that the National Guard is involved. They sent the National Guard into, is it Oklahoma or Ohio? Called the opioid heroin capital of the United States. They were setting up tracking devices, technology, to see if they could get this under control. But they were told they aren't going to be leaving the area anytime soon. You know, and that's amazing about all of this, because if the government can track anybody, if they know about all this drugs and stuff, why aren't they going after them? Why aren't they stopping their importing of heroin? You know, what? You know, they act like, well, I know exactly how they can track people, how they can watch them through the walls with through-wall camera, the backscatter and millimeter cameras. They can watch you, and they got vans in New York City driving around, looking through people's cars, looking through their apartments. They were calling them X-ray vans, but I guess they're not using X-ray. They're using radio frequencies. And now they've converted Wi-Fi into also a through-wall apparatus. Instead of a cloud, they can direct Wi-Fi as a pulse, as a beam. Wi-Fi carries everything. Carries sound, movies, carries this program I'm on right now. So instead of 360 degrees, it's 1 degree, and they can direct that right at you. They can hit you in the head, put a movie in there. It's called a trigger. And then if they really want you to do something important, like a school shooting, not only do they trigger you with subliminal suggestions using these pulses, but they'll make sure there's a handler nearby to make sure that you carry out the task. Boy, I'm getting old. I don't like getting old. I want to be 16 again, knowing what I know now. And if I know now what I know back in '96 when I was first targeted by Peter Terigian because I spoke out against that's how I became a target. I spoke out against the mayor in the town. No, not really spoke out. I went for a meeting with him, with a friend of mine. She had photographs in a book, and she wanted to show this portfolio, I guess you could call it, to the mayor. She was very concerned about the animals that were going to, their homes were going to be destroyed, and I was more concerned about the trees and the woods, because they suck up the pollution. And Peabody's water was notorious for being bad. It was chocolate brown, foamy, smelly, the yuckiest water coming out of your faucet you could imagine. And when I went for this meeting with Terigian, Leslie didn't want to go to the meeting at first. I said, come on, you can show him your portfolio and I can find out who else owns the land. Because I knew that the city didn't own all of the land. There was like 3 T's. The first 3 T's were owned by someone else. And I later found out it was owned by Eastman Gelatin, who several years later sold it to the city. So now the city owns all the land. So I didn't know that, because what I was trying to do was start a 501c to collect money. I was approaching very wealthy individuals so I could buy this land and deed it to the city of Peabody and leave it as fallow ground so people could, because it was a quite large piece of property within the city, and that's very unusual, People, they're chipping away at it. Like they had already had part of it chipped away on the other side. A construction company, DiBiase, had built homes on it already, part of it. And he, from what I heard, was given the, not a promise, but was told that later on he could buy more. So anyway, we were very concerned about this golf course being built on our watershed, and it is built on our watershed. And the water was this color. It was horrible. You couldn't drink it, you couldn't bathe in it, you couldn't do anything with it. Couldn't drink it, wash clothes, could do nothing with it. So, and I was going to school. I was really, really on a tight budget because of school. And I was having to buy a bottled water so we could have something to drink and cook with and wash with. So I was very concerned about this water. So I took it for 10 years, and that's when I finally decided, I'd had enough. I went before the mayor. Now, at this meeting, one of the things that astounded me, I was just thinking about this the other day, when I went for the meeting before the mayor, the water treatment plant was being built at the time of this meeting. That's all he had to do was tell us, well, we're building water treatment plant. because the water treatment plant opened in 1997, and this was December of 1996. So this thug knew that the water treatment plant was in the process. Never said a word. He never said a word. That's like his daughter is now continuing the vendetta against me, and it isn't because of what her father did. He completely wiped my life away. Lost thousands of dollars, my car, my apartment, everything in it, just about everything in it. Ran me out of town. She wasn't upset about what her father did to me. That astounds me. She accepted this as normal. Of course, she had had her ass kicked for the 23 years he was in office so people could curry favor with her because of her father. But she wasn't upset at what her father did to me, and she knew what he did. She was upset because I went public with it, and I kept writing about it, and I kept writing about it in my blog, and I kept writing about it in Facebook, and any media I could find. I wanted other people to know what a son of a bitch this son of a bitch was. And I wasn't the only person he did this to. He drove the Trovis brothers off their land. They were in their 80s. They owned a little piece of property in town, and he wanted it. So he did what is it, public domain? Something domain, I can't remember the other word. Eminent domain. And he also went after, there was one guy that had a little newspaper, made his living with it. He was a journalist. And he thought Terejan was the big thug too. And Terejan went after him. Almost financially broke him. Tom took him to court. See, I didn't know who to point the finger at. I knew it was Terejan because my targeting started 2 weeks after the meeting with him. And I called up Leslie, and I told Leslie, if anything happens to me, you can point the finger at him. Knowing her, she wouldn't say a word. She wouldn't shut up because she's one of these nervous type of people that cry at the drop of a hat. See, nobody really knows what happened at that meeting except me, Leslie. Terejan's dead, and his bodyguard, this Portuguese guy. And I haven't been able to get his name yet, and I would like it. If anybody out there who's watching this know his name, send it my way. I'll add it to my list. Within 30 seconds of entering the room, Terejan had Leslie crying. She was nervous Nellie anyway, so it didn't take much. I sat on the other side of the other end of the table, and I was just looking at him, and he knew he wouldn't fuck with me because I was not a nervous Nellie. He knew who to attack. He had it all planned out. So she explained to him about in the portfolio about the pictures after she calmed down. And I just asked for a map and asked to see who else owned the other part of the land. And he showed me, and it was East Magellan. And that's all I was said. That's all I said. So on the way out, she's walking behind me through the office, crying and, oh, I'm never going to do this again, blah, 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 blah. I'm never going to do this. And I turned to her and I said, well, listen, you're embarrassing me. Shut up. And I turned around to walk out, and Terejan was blocking my way in the doorway. So I was right at the doorway. And I said, I'm going to continue to her. Turned around, and he's blocking my way. And he said, well, don't bite off more than you can chew. Well, he was right on that point. I did bite off more than I could chew. Who knew about directed energy weapons at that time? Nobody. And my landlord, Stuart Cummins, He knew about them. They had used them in HUD. HUD had a Operation Safe Home. Operation Safe Home was nationwide. SWAT went into the big projects, cleaned out all the criminals, rapists, murderers, drug dealers, usually drugs. They were very oriented into drugs because of Reagan, his war against drugs, and cleaned them out. And when they left the staff and the landlords who could point the finger at anybody they wanted as being a target. And then they would go after them with directed energy weapons, force them into hospital, force them into evaluation for a propensity for violence. This is what they did with me. Later on, they forced me into the Mass General Hospital. I told the doctor I was hit with a taser. Now, the police were carrying tasers at that time. This doctor, this older doctor, had no idea what a taser was. He was asking the young doctor. So, the young doctor came in, and his examination to the back of my neck was this. Swished my hair back and forth. That was it. And I guess he didn't see anything that alarmed him. Of course, he didn't look. And they threw me in the hospital for several days. And then, let's see, his name was Smallwood, was in charge in the hospital. And what he did was, I guess he called up the government. And they sent out a doctor, a psychiatrist, who examined me. His name was Alan Walcott. Now, I was sitting there, and I asked Mr. Walcott, "Who are you?" Told me his name. "What do you do?" "I'm a psychiatrist." "Who do you work for?" "Work for the federal government." "What's your job?" "I fly around the country, and I evaluate people for a propensity for violence." So we sat there and chatted for about, I can't really remember, but I'd say a half hour. And he left. He told him I had a propensity for low violence. And he was wrong. I'm nonviolent. I'm all bark and no bite. It's really terrible. But everybody is pushed to the wall, You have a limit. And I'm telling you, they pushed me to the wall several times, to suicide. And if they had continued, I would have done anything to get away from them. So as far as people who are being suicided, yeah. One other incident I'm going to relate here, and then I'm going to close this down. I was in bed one night, and Danny McKenna used to live a couple of houses over from me, and he was one of the ones that drove me out of my apartment with Scott Burns, who's worked for East Magellan, and his wife also worked for the city. So anyway, they were hitting me with breath suppressing. Now get this, breath suppressing beam. I'm laying there, and all of a sudden, I'm finding it very, very hard to breathe. And I could feel this beam on me, because you can feel them. And I'm a lot younger then, and it didn't really affect me as hard as it would now. And what they did, I lived in a duplex, and the woman who shared a common wall, her bedroom was right behind my bed. Our beds were on the same wall. So when they hit me, they hit her, went right through the wall, went through my wall, went through her wall. Within 15 minutes of me laying there, struggling to breathe, and I was struggling, Someone had called an ambulance. They took her to the hospital that night, and she died that night. She was an older gal. She wasn't fragile. She still had some years left. She, you know, considering her age, she wasn't ready to go yet. And then my husband, my former husband, was also killed with a stroke, and that was done on purpose. And that was done for a reason. I know the reason, and I'll write that up. And I don't want to relay that here, but I was told why they killed him. So these are the devices, and that's the technique that they're using, the anchoring. That's gang stalking, what's called gang stalking, or organized stalking, as I prefer. Harassment, organized harassment. I like that better, because that's what it is. And a lot of these people that they use, the government outsource them to security companies. Now, security companies want this to continue because we are their salary. They're making money off the government, and they're making money off what they're doing by keeping this going. We are their job. So if they keep this going, they have a job, they have an income. A lot of these people call them perpetrators and perps for short, but that's not even a good idea to me. I'd like to figure out a better word for them. Anyway, that's it so far. This is why I'm telling people, you know, you better be careful. You've got to be aware of what's going on. And I hope those who are listening to this, the reason I look as bad as I do is because I don't get any sleep. They start at midnight, 2 o'clock, and they wake me up every half hour. Try it sometime. But better yet, do it for a couple of weeks and see how good you look. See this tooth? I woke up to that. They broke it. Pulsed me right in the face, broke it. I didn't have any money to fix it. So it rotted. So now I look like a toothless wonder. I'm a dental hygienist. My teeth were a pride. And they've taken this one, destroyed this one, destroyed this one, gone after this one, destroyed that one. And that's what they do. Whatever you have pride in, whatever you love the most, whatever you care for the most, they'll go after it. That's their target. That is debilitating to your personality. That's like sand running through your hands. There's no way you can stop them. There's too many of them. They're too organized, and there's only one of you. And it's debilitating. It destroys your personality, and that's what they want. They want PTSD. They want you dead. This is a depopulation program, and if you don't think so, read Henry Kissinger's NSSM 200 population file. NSSM 200. Yeah, it's the name of the file. Read that. And he wrote that in the 70s. So the rich want us dead. They want to replace us with robots. They think robots can do it. Artificial intelligence. I just want to leave with a few words on artificial intelligence. People program the robots. Now, This can also lead to unforeseen circumstances. What if they program something in that robot that they're not aware of? I know that they've shut down a couple of programs. The robots had developed their own language, and there was another program shut down, and I can't really remember why. But the robots think that this will be the answer. But the people who program the robots also have peccadillos in their personality, and you never know if that gets into the robot or not. And what could it be? Maybe he's a psychopath. Oh yeah, I have a paper here describing psychopaths, but I'll read that maybe I will read that right now. I wrote this down. This is on a program, one of those audiobooks. It's called The Veiled One by Ruth Rendell. She's great. Psychopaths are emotionally immature, impulsive in the broadest and most comprehensive way, unwilling to accept the results of experience, unable to profit by them, lacking in persistence and sincerity, demanding, faithful to infidelity, ruthless, independable, dependable in their inconsistency. This is by David Stafford Clark. I'm going to go look that up and see if I can find a write-up about that and post it. Anyway, I'm going to shut this down because I'm tired. I need a cup of coffee. And that was pretty much my letter to Wired and my thoughts about what's going on in the world today. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing that this snuck up on us like this. And they're still keeping it hidden from the general public. And like I said, we are the canaries in the coal mine, and you better listen up. You have a good day, and take care.